so day 4 is all about the courage to take action, praying for the courage to take action.
Yes.
And so just to recap, 1 was praying for a God-centered self-image, 2, breaking our addiction to food, 3, generational patterns of poor health. So 4 is the courage to take action. So it's a culmination of the first 3,
right,
and then doing something about it.
right.
And the prayer piece is kind of where you're combining the prayer with the action, because we've had this conversation of praying to lose weight, praying for these things, but then doing things to the contrary of what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And I know you wrote a really great blog article about an actual experience of someone praying for better health, and then afterwards everyone met
and had all this crazy food. And it's such a disconnect. It's such a disconnect. And this is why I think we had to close out the 4-day prayer for your health with the courage to take action, because we live our lives in this disconnect all day long. And the Bible says faith without works is dead. You can't believe something and it doesn't show in your actions. Then the real truth is you don't believe it. And so you kind of jostle with those two ideas. And so part of solidifying your belief is taking action. And so if you really believe, you know what, I need to have a God-centered self-image. I really need to break my addiction to food. And I need to create a new legacy of health for my family. If you really believe it, then you will have the courage to take action. And it's not an action that you have to take in of yourself. This is where you pray for God's strength. But in partnership with God, you can take the action that it needs to make those changes.
And I'll be honest with you. So, I mean, you know my story. When I was diagnosed with high cholesterol and plaque in my carotid artery back in 2007, I was 35. And it was a wake-up call when my doctor said, hey, I want to put you on this statin drug to lower your cholesterol. And I remember the conversation very vividly. I even remember the doctor's, like the room I was in. And I mean, this was a while ago. And he said, I told him, that I didn't want the drug, that I wanted to, change some things. I knew I wasn't taking great care of myself. I was just traveling all the time and eating at, high-end restaurants and not watching what I was ordering. I was just ordering what I wanted. And he said to me, that's not realistic. That's what he said to me. He's like, you can't, that's not realistic that you can change. And so I recommend you take this pill. And I think part of me kind of that, being someone who...
That probably triggered you to actually make the change. Yes. And sometimes it's a tactic by the doctors, Sometimes they say, no, it's not going to work for you. Because they know that kind of... inspires people to do the opposite.
And I don't know if he was like that.
I don't know if he wasn't, but it's a tactic.
It could be, because part of me was like, he must be working for the drug company. Getting like a side,
So now it makes you determined that I'm gonna make this change.
And I remember, and so I share this when I share my story that I learned around the same time about Dr. Dean Ornish and how he was able to reverse heart disease, including lowering cholesterol and other forms like blood pressure and whatnot, with a plant-based diet and without medication. And so I remember saying, like, there's no way, I could do this. It's just too extreme. And so I did turn to what the USDA said and my wellness department was saying was a good diet, which was poultry and fish and low-fat dairy, versus what I was eating, which was more red meat, like steaks, with, hollandaise sauce and all that stuff. And so, my cholesterol went from horrible to borderline bad and stayed there. And so this courage to take action really resonates with me because, yes, I did take some action, in terms of cutting back on the most egregious things. But but I didn't really take the action that I wish I would have today, because I have new information.
Right.
Even though I had the information, I have new personal experience information to draw on. And so I was sitting, I call it the ambivalence fence. You know, the ambivalence meaning you both want to do something and not want to do something. And so you know that you need to make a change, but you don't want to make the change.
Right.
You know, you want to eat healthy, but you also don't want to eat healthy. And so it's that kind of thing where I was on that fence for a good 5 years. And, you know, it just got to the point where, you know, I just got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired all the time. And I think I really overdid it on a vacation Kevin and I took in 2012. I gained a bunch of weight in a week, like just a week. I gained like weight, like real weight. And I just felt horrible. And you know, that's when I decided to take more extreme action. And then it took me another 6 months after that to really get to where, you know, I felt like this is the way to go, which is whole food, plant-based.
Right.
So, you know, I think when I look back, I had these kind of limiting beliefs, and I was like, why didn't I make that change when I knew I had the information? And it totally came down to, I was afraid of not eating, you know, animal products. And it wasn't, I don't think I had the protein argument that some people try to use. Mine was more, I think, around attaching success to food. Like, you know, I grew up pretty working class. You know, there were periods where we didn't have a lot of money, and so, but, you know, I ate a lot of processed food growing up, you know, mac and cheese in the blue box. And, you know, in college, it was, you know, those little packaged ramen noodles that were like 5 for $1. You know? And, you know, I just felt like, you know, because you know, we were struggling a lot financially, and me through college and everything, that, you know, success was eating at these fancy restaurants.
It kind of showed that you've arrived.
I've arrived. I can go have shrimp scampi and, you know, a glass of champagne with it, and this cheesecake for dessert and all this other stuff. And so it was just like, you know, it was this limiting belief that I carried with me for a long time, that I think originated from my experience in childhood, you know, and so it basically kept me in this state of ambivalence for so long. And what I didn't realize was when I just completely got rid of all that stuff, like the quality of my life, like shot through the roof. It was amazing. It went from, you know, me thinking that the quality of my life would go down if I stopped eating these things, to the quality of my life just increasing so much. I could have never imagined it, you know, in terms of how I felt, in terms of reversing my disease, in terms of just opening my social network. Like, my whole social life was work. I mean, I had, you know, colleagues and people I would hang out with after work, but I didn't have friends outside of work. That was my world. And so when I got rid of all that stuff, it was just a matter of, you know, I got all this energy, and then I started cycling. So I had this whole cycling community, you know, and the people that I met there, and people that I, you know, consider to be extremely close friends of mine today. I would have never met had I not started cycling, and I wouldn't have started cycling if I didn't change.
All kind of,
it just kind of,
connects together. And this is why, you know, we phrase it with praying for the courage, because it does take courage to make changes, because you have to challenge those beliefs. Right? Because there's something in your mind that you're telling yourself, you know, whether it be, I won't ever like the food, my life is going to go down, whatever it is that you're telling yourself something that's keeping you locked in from saying, you know what, I believe everything that I just learned over these 3 days, but something is stopping me from really embracing it. And sometimes it's even just a fear of doing the work.
Yeah.
It's going to be too hard. It's going to be too overwhelming. I don't have the ability to really do it. And so this is why it's so important that we're praying to break that, because in praying for the courage to change, you're allowing God's truth to replace yours.
Right.
You're allowing God to say, no, I want you healthy. You can do it with my strength. And this is a different shift, because now you're looking for God's truth to replace your own, and you're relying on his strength rather than your own. And so those put together with the knowledge that you have is a recipe for success, because now you're armored with the knowledge of what you need to do. You're armored with a new way of thinking, and you're armored with having God as your partner in this journey.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of times we wait for some tipping point to happen. For me, it was just being tired all the time and feeling bad in this horrible vacation, not bad vacation, but the horrible food that not horrible food. It was more like just damaging food in my body. That's probably the best way to describe it. And some people, it'll be like, okay, I just had a heart attack, I need to do something. Or my doctor said that I'm on the verge of having to get something amputated because of my type 2 diabetes, or I'm going to go blind or whatever. And it's that tipping point. And so, we always say it's not too late until it's too late.
Yeah.
And I think, someone who feels nudged into taking action to do something about their health, and they sign up for this 4-day challenge, and they have this community of support, to go through the challenge. I think that praying for that courage to take action to continue down the path. It's like you've done the hardest part, which is that first step. To sign up for the challenge.
But action is ongoing.
But the action is ongoing. So you have basically in those 4 days created a data point for yourself to say, I can do this. I got through the 4 days and I can keep going. And then and then continuing on, through the 4-week course and continuing on through the rest of your life.
That's it.
And making it a lifestyle.
Because, taking charge of your health, inviting God into your health journey, it's not a one action. It's a continual action. It's a continual steps of challenging, your beliefs, trying new foods. There's just so many different actions that you have to take. So it's going to take a lot of courage to be able to walk that journey long term. And and that's why we're really excited about. I think the 4th day really is the breakthrough, because you get little breakthroughs on day 1, day 2, and day 3, but I feel like the real breakthrough comes when you step out in faith and you take that tangible action. Because that's where the magic happens, is in the action. Because everything is simmering and simmering and simmering as you're gaining the knowledge, and you're hearing God convict you, and you're getting nudged in the right direction, you're getting inspired, and you're getting the team vibe and all of that stuff. But the real deal happens on day 4, when you decide to walk out on faith, even if you don't feel ready, even if you still feel scared, even if you feel, I don't know, I want a God for self-image, but I don't know if I could get it, whatever it is. When you step out in faith, because the thing about stepping out in faith, it's not about being and feeling 100% ready. It's believing God. I believe what I've heard is correct. I believe this is you. I believe you want me healthy. I believe you have a purpose for me, but I don't feel that I'm able to do it. All the insecurities that we all feel, but I'm still going to take the step anyway. So it's never about, I'm perfectly on my, and I think part of that is our way of delay tactic, and by saying that everything's got to be perfect. I can't, really, it doesn't have to be perfect. Totally. It's actually in your imperfection that God shows up, and so He meets you where you're at, and it's that very fact that you can't measure up is where He steps in, and where this all happens.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's so true. It's a delay tactic. When you're trying to make sure everything is absolutely perfect, it's just another
it's
way
just
to
our
stall.
fear to stall us.
It's a stall tactic.
It's a stall tactic. And so step out and make the changes, ready or not.
Yeah.
Because God's got you on the other side. And I think that's the piece that you could be sure of.
Right.
Not in yourself, but just sure of that if I take action, God's going to meet me halfway.